So I'm really, really pleased to be here today, and as we know, the renters' rights are the biggest change to the housing sector in the last 40 years, so I do think it warrants a bit of exciting music, because we've been the countdown for certainly a couple of years now and over a couple of governments, haven't we? So phase one, which is hitting us on Friday, which is the 1st of May. Okay, so tenancy agreements. I had a call the other day from a friend who said to me, Hannah, I've seen this renters' rights business. It's happening 1st of May. What do we need to do? I said, well, you've got your tenancy agreement, got your tenant. She said, no, we haven't got a tenancy agreement. We've got an oral tenancy. So that threw me a little bit. So moving forward from the 1st of May, I'm sure a lot of you have got written tenancy agreements. But if you've got sort of a friend that's moved in and you've always just had a casual agreement, you do now need to have a written tenancy agreement. And really that's also so that all parties are clear with the information that you've both agreed to. So rent, deposit, who the landlord is, who's paying the utilities, where the deposit is, and so on and so forth. Mandatory information for new tenancy agreements must be given to the tenants before they sign, and that's really so that they can make what's known as an informed decision on the document that they are signing, because I'm sure a lot of you, if you ever have sort of discussions with tenants about clause 1.8 or whatever it might be, they'll say, oh, I didn't read that. Oh, I didn't know that was there. And actually it just gives them the opportunity to read through those agreements to make sure that, you know, they are signing, they do know what they are signing. So tenancy types. From May the 1st, all tenancies are going to be periodic assured tenancy. PAT or APT, assured periodic tenancy, not assured short hold tenancies, and fixed terms will be no more. So let's say, for example, you signed a 12-month fixed term last August, and that's still going on. From May the 1st, that will change to a periodic tenancy. Quick note here also, if you do advertise a property beyond May the 1st, please don't advertise it with fixed terms within your advertising, because that will get you into some hot water, which Linda will go on and talk about. And if a tenant comes up to you at any point during, say, a viewing and says, oh, I'd like a fixed term for 12 months, you cannot offer it to the tenant. It's a periodic month-to-month tenancy. There is a little bit of concern, sort of rumblings around this, as the tenants can give 2 months' notice. So their notice period has now changed as well. So let's say you had a new tenant move in, day 2 they can give you 2 months' notice because it's a rolling tenancy. My experience as a letting agent, which spans about 20 years, hence the crow feet, I don't think I've ever had a tenant want to leave day 2 of moving into a property unless something catastrophic has happened. Touch wood. The amount it costs to move house, the upheaval for families, people often move for jobs. They want to settle, and I think we'll go on to talk about the Section 21. The whole sort of ethos around the renters' rights is so that tenants can have longevity in their properties and create a home. Tenancy wording. So the government's released the wording that you can use, and that's been sort of around since, I think, late in March, so that you know what needs to be included. You mustn't use the written statement before the 1st of May. And just while we are talking about sort of your written statements, your tenancy agreements and things like that, do please ensure that you are using good quality tenancy agreement. So you can either download it from the government website, the written statements there, the information sheet, which I will go on and talk about shortly. We offer them on EMPOA. We have all of the documents, all of the notices, etc., with videos on how to use them. Please don't refer to ChatGPT. Please don't refer to Google. As tempting as it is, and I know that they can sort of support you with writing an awkwardly worded email and things like that, you've just got to be really careful that what you're putting in front of the tenants is correct, because again, that will land you in hot water if you are sort of producing you know, low quality tenancy agreements. They're legal documents, so you need to make sure that you're using the correct one. Next one, slide please, Linda. I feel like I've been elevated today in society because Linda's supporting me by pushing my slides through.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
That last one, you mentioned the bottom line there, which says you don't need to give, well, I don't think you don't need to give existing tenancies.
Yes, I will go on to that, but no, you're quite right. So existing tenancies don't need a new tenancy agreement. They require what's called the information sheet to be given to them, and that's on the government website. It's new tenancies from the 1st of May, which require the written statement of terms, and you can have that within your tenancy agreement, or you can serve it on the tenants as a separate document. Section 21. This has probably been one of the most catastrophised points of the renters' rights. I think sort of, I'll never get my property back, tenants will be able to build up arrears, and that sort of thing has been bandied around certainly a lot by the press. And the abolition of Section 21 from May the 1st will certainly change the landscape of getting your property back. You know, a lot of us have potentially used that. It's the go-to notice, and you don't need to have a reason to use that notice. Whereas moving forward, when you rely on the Section 8, you will need to have evidence, grounds and a reason for serving the notice. Just a little note here, we're on the 28th of April today, just in case nobody remembered, but the last day to serve the Section 21 is the 30th, which is in 48 hours, and the cut-off is 4:30. Now, if you do intend to do that, make sure that you're using the correct serviture of notice and the tenant's going to be in receipt within the correct timescales, because you don't want it to be invalid. Just a little point there. The Section 8 will be relied on moving forward to gain possession of your property. So the government have given us some new and expanded grounds and strengthened existing grounds so that you can use them to gain possession of your property when you want to. Let's say, for example, you've got a family member wanting to move in, or you decide that actually mum's old bungalow, you know, you just don't want to have it anymore, it's too much hassle, and you want to sell that property. We've also got a new ground 4A for students, so probably the most affected area of the industry is going to be the student sector. You can only increase the rent via Section 13, so maybe in the past you used to go around and say to the tenant, you know, I'm going to put the rent up. Right, okay, if you could do it from next month, great, okay, fine. Now you have to serve the Section 13, otherwise it'll be null and void. The other point to make is if you do go all out crazy and put your rent up a big amount, then the tenants can pay for a small fee, which is £47. I don't know if that's been decided yet, and go to a first-tier tribunal. So if they do that, what happens to your rent increase is it goes in the queue and it waits until the first-tier tribunal gets a chance to have a look at it. They do their investigation and they decide whether the rent should be going up that amount, and then when they've made their decision, we don't know how long that will take, but I imagine it may be a well-utilised service. That is when your rent increase will kick in. It won't be backdated. So just to make you aware that it's necessary to sort of do your homework before you go and pop your rent up. I mean, if you write to your tenants, serve them the Section 13, and they are unhappy about the amount that you've proposed to put the rent up, I think it's a really good idea to then enter into negotiations with your tenant. Do then open up the opportunity to have a discussion about it, because once you're in the mix with the first-tier tribunal, goodness knows how long that will take, and obviously then, you know, you're in a waiting game as to when you can put your rent up. It also sort of lends itself to, you know, a lot of the ethos about the renters' rights is about building strong relationships with your tenants, having those long-term relationships, and doing so via really strong communications, and also going on, Linda will talk about this a little bit, evidence and documenting sort of communication that you do have with your tenants. We want to be fair. We want to run a sort of really strong professional ship with our rental portfolio. So just ensure that you are communicating and documenting everything should anything ever sort of come to pass. And I think certainly for me, if I ever receive a nicely written email, it comes across as that the other person kind of cares what's going on, rather than maybe, you know, a short text that's perhaps not sort of very clear, or it's just a really good opportunity to be able to build strong relationships with your tenants. We are a nation of pet lovers, and there is evidence to suggest, well, lots of evidence that tenants, and maybe historically now, will remain in properties for longer when they have pets, because perhaps they're fearful of going back into the open market. In the old days, we used to charge a pet premium, I think, which would be a bit of a sweetener for a landlord. And even the really olden days, they used to pay a high deposit. But
and high rent.
Yes, yeah, and everything's changed now. So, pets, right? You can still advertise a property with stating no pets. The slight caveat to this is that once a tenant is in, they can make a request to have a pet, and it's your responsibility as a landlord to respond to this request within 28 days. Linda will go on to talk about the Ombudsman, so if you don't respond, you're leaving yourself open for a complaint to the Ombudsman. You're also potentially going to aggravate a situation. Now, with regard to pets and what's reasonable and what isn't, my understanding is that if it's not practically possible for the pet to live safely, let's say you've got an HMO and somebody's on a room-only tenancy and they're coming in with 2 dogs, on welfare grounds, that's not really going to be practically possible, because your other tenants may not want 2 dogs roaming around the communal areas. And also, it's not very kind to the dogs to be in the room when the owner is out. Additionally, if you've got, let's say, a studio and somebody wants to bring a couple of dogs there, then, you know, that again is not going to be practically possible. I think it's sort of about landlords having a blanket ban on pets and not considering them based on their own experience. Now, I've seen the, outcome of an irresponsible pet owner, and it isn't very pleasant. At EMPOA, and you have a relationship with a charity called Advocates, and this is a lady who embodies sort of everything about pet ownership. She's lovely. What she does is she supports tenants with creating a pet passport, and I think that this isn't saying, you know, this gives you an absolute cast iron guarantee that the pets aren't going to damage the property, but what it does do is highlight the owners as being responsible. So she will have in there the last time that they went to the vets to have a wormer. If they're on a flea trim, you can get those plans, can't you, that owners buy into. If they're up to date with their vaccinations, which is a really good indication of how responsible a pet owner is going to be if they do keep up with that. That also suggests that they will not leave the dog in the house alone during the day for 8 hours when they go to work, leaving it to bark, leaving it to chew things, etc. And, you know, steps will be taken to ensure that the animal is well provided for. If they do go to work or what have you, they get a dog walker in and that sort of thing. I think it's also a good opportunity to say to your tenant, again, this comes down to communication, can I meet the pet? You know, depending on how involved you want to get, but I don't think that's a bad idea, depending on whether it's a bearded dragon or a cat. Show an interest if they've got a dog, you know, go and meet it and see the reaction and just see what you're facing. And it does sort of open up then communication with your tenant as well. Tenancy deposits. Now, there was again a lot of talk about whether there was going to be the option to have higher deposits. That has gone by the by, as well as mandating pet insurance, unfortunately, but you'll have to recover any damage costs over and above the deposit in the court down the usual process. Rental discrimination. Okay, so it's illegal to discriminate against tenants with children or on benefits. Now, this is coming in a little bit too late in my view. And when I first joined the industry, early 2000s, you know, a lot of agencies did have a sort of blanket on universal credit, not necessarily children, but and some landlords do try and employ that still, but you cannot do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have no control over which applicant you wish to choose to rent your property to. if, for example, a tenant comes to you, if you've got a selection of 3, and the tenant on universal credits either has, the family is too large for the property, again you're going back to practical reasons, or they fail on affordability, then you have reason to not disregard, but not approve their application. If there is a suggestion that you're ringing your agency and saying, I don't want any children, I don't want anybody on universal credit in this property, A, the agent should be not acting for you, and B, you can't do that. So again, you're going to get yourself into hot water. But what you can do is, just going back to the point on the screen, you can choose the most suitable tenant for your property. There are also rent guarantee options out there these days and things which I think will be developed as we move through the Act and see it in the marketplace. Rental bidding. So when you're advertising your property, you must advertise with a clear rent. So on your adverts, it must be advertised at a clear rent. When you have a stream of people, if you're conducting your own viewings, and somebody comes up and says, I really want this house, it's really close to my children's school, will you take an extra 50 a month and give it to me? No. Unfortunately, you can't. Again, you know, be really mindful of engaging, encouraging, asking for, suggesting that this might put somebody at the top of the queue, because you will get into hot water, and that will be it's a sort of short-term thinking. Because if you do land yourself with a £7,000 fine, it will wipe out any of that. But also, the fact is, it's not allowed anymore.
No, you can approve it.
Well, it's.
Come on to that, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, as Andy says, Linda can talk about that, but also I suspect it's advertising. This is again down to documenting. Somebody sees your advert, and then on the tenancy agreement there's a higher rent written, and the tenant goes to the council or a governing body to.
There are different ways that they can investigate. So if you've advertised the property at say 500, and then you've accepted 600. And then you continue down the line, and then at say month 12 you and the tenant fall out and that relationship breaks down. That tenant then comes to the council or the ombudsman, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about later, comes to the ombudsman and says, this landlord, and by the way, he accepted 600 and it was advertised for 500. This is my tenancy agreement, and you can backdate, you can have a look on Rightmove, you can pull off those historic records. It was 500, it's an instant £7,000 fine.
As I mentioned, everything that Hannah's talked to you about then, and there's quite a lot, as I think you'll appreciate, is all comes in 3 days' time on the 1st of May. So if you're busy now until the 1st of May and you've got tenancies, please put some time aside for that first week of May to make sure that you've got everything in order. That's the first bit. The second phase is going to come in towards the end of 2026, and that's the database, the private rented sector database. And then phase 3, a little bit later on, is going to be AWAB's law and decent home standard. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So, the Ombudsman and the database then. So there's going to be a new private landlord ombudsman. So this is going to be in addition to the ombudsman redress scheme that your agent signs up for. This is going to be in addition to your licensing and in addition to any accreditation or landlord association that you may join. So this is going to be a national scheme that's run, and every landlord who rents out a private rented property will have to join this, regardless of if they have an agent or not. And it will be for the tenants to use, in addition to the council's complaint procedure, they can apply they can complain to the ombudsman should you not be doing what's expected in the law, especially when it comes to renters' rights. So failure to join the ombudsman could lead to enforcement action, and failure to listen to what the ombudsman says and take appropriate action will mean that you get expelled from the ombudsman scheme, Ergo, you can't be a landlord because you need to be in the Ombudsman to be a landlord. So it's going to have some quite hefty teeth to it. Do as I say, else you get kicked out. And if you know, there will be an appeals process and all of that written in. Now, this isn't quite ready yet. You'll have heard about it in the social sector where it's operating, but it's not quite ready for us yet. There's going to be one that's going to be operating for us all in the social sector and the private rented sector. So we're expecting this towards 2028. But there's a lot of work to do to get it up to speed and get it ready. So we'll be coming back at various landlord forums to give you an update on that. There will be a fee to join, and we are told that that fee will be per landlord every year. So just have that in your budgeting mind as we're moving forward.
Sorry, can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Is the most important word there private landlords? Because what
Yes.
about somebody who rents out properties through a limited company?
You would have to register. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. If you rent out on a tenancy agreement, then you would have to. Yeah.
Private landlord there means everybody other than a social landlord.
Social landlords as well, but they're already in.
Okay.
They're already in.
That is limited company landlord.
Yeah. Every landlord. Yeah. Unless you're a holiday let. You're not no holiday lets, no Airbnbs in this one. There is Airbnb stuff coming, so any of you that are sitting there thinking, well, I think I'm just going to Airbnb it, there's regulation coming for that as well, but that's another day, another hat. So the one that's a little bit more on the horizon, the private landlord database. So this is coming, again, it's a national scheme, it's in addition to your licensing, and it's in addition to the Ombudsman. When the Ombudsman's in, this will be addition to that as well. So every property that's rented in the private rented sector will need to be listed on this national database before it can be advertised. And it's being tested in its beta phase at the moment. Our friends over at Nottingham City Council, they're part of the trial rollout, and they're testing the systems and seeing what it's looked like, running some different scenarios, etc. So you will pay a fee per property to upload that onto the database. You as the landlord will, or the company will be able to have your account, and then you'll put all your properties on. There's talk that you'll have to upload your EPCs, your EICRs, your electrical certificates, and your gas safety certificates. There's talk that you have to physically upload those on as well, although that hasn't been confirmed as yet. You will have to, if you've found that you've advertised and not on the portal, there will be fines involved. So it's really important. And this is coming as soon as the end of 2026. So it's really making good progress. I've seen the beta phase, and it is coming on. It's going to look a little bit like, for tenants, it's going to look a little bit like, you know, when you want to check if a car's got an MOT or is taxed, and you put in your registration number and it pops up, MOT due this and tax due this. It's going to look a little bit like that. And as I say, it's a national programme. So these are two things. Probably the database is after you've done the May the 1st bit and you're all settled on that, towards the end of the year, we're going to be talking at the bit. We've got a big Dash conference again on the 20th of October, where we're hopefully getting somebody to come and give you a live demo of this, so you'll be able to see what it looks like and get ready to be involved in it. It's going to be rolled out in phases, so there will be a group of local authorities that will be first on the list, and then second, etc. So we'll see where you are in West Lindsey on that rollout, but will be plenty of information from then. Okay, so what happens if you don't comply? The first thing to say is a little bit like what I said earlier. Please don't try and find a back door, because, as I say, you don't want to be the first that gets pulled in front of the media as being that landlord. Think about how you can comply and not how I can't comply, and then we should be onto a good footing. So. You were saying about who's going to find out. The government has given more money to councils to enforce this Renters' Rights Act. So the councils will be having more resources to go after the landlords that are criminal landlords that aren't operating properly. They will be also have more investigatory powers to go after those criminal landlords as well. So they're getting tougher on the criminal landlords, and there's a range of civil penalties that they will be able to issue. They range from £7,000 for minor or first offences all the way up to £40,000 for the serious or repeat offenders. You were saying, who does that money go to? I think the question was. That money will go back to the council to be used to enforce against criminal landlords in the future. However, the rent repayment orders, which have also been extended, will go to the tenant. So they used to be 12 months, if you remember. They used to be 12 months. If you did something wrong, the tenant could claim all of that money back for the last 12 months. That's been extended to 24 months. So you will be able to imagine losing 24 months worth of rent in addition to potentially a civil penalty as well. That's going to really hit some of the criminal landlords in the pocket, and hopefully push them out of business. So it's tougher powers there. It's also they've also been expanded out to superior landlords, to landlords on a rent-to-rent scheme, for example. If I'm renting to you but you're renting to Hannah, we could both get the rent repayment order on us as well. So it could be quite costly. What I'm telling you this for is to ensure that you, as I say, don't try and circumnavigate, keep regular records, keep yourselves protected, because you don't want to be having to pay all of that rent back just for a breach. So what should the landlords do first then? Come on. Come and help me here. What should the landlords do first? So if they've got new tenancies starting, so the landlords have got tenants moving in on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of May, what have they got to do? This is going back to your question. Well, what have I got to do first? What about that information sheet?
If you've got a new agreement from beyond the 1st of May, you've got to get a new tenancy agreement. So don't use a fixed term old WH Smith tenancy agreement, please. Go onto the government website, go onto the EMPOA website and download it. You also need to make sure that this tenancy agreement holds a written statement. Now, as I said earlier, this is to ensure the tenant understands what they are. So it'll outline, as I said to you, the information regarding the tenancy agreement. It can be a separate document or it can be within the tenancy. It includes things such as landlord names, the address, where to give notice, what notice is needed, the rent amount, the bills, deposit information, and enables the tenant to understand what they're signing, and you must give them sufficient time. There's no point in sort of sitting there on the day of them moving in, as potentially we used to in the letting agents. You know, they come in, they've not seen a draft copy of the tenancy agreement, they've not read it, they don't really understand what they're signing, and you've got the keys next to them, and then, you know, they have 2 minutes flick through and go, yeah, okay, and just sign the bottom. That's not really suitable, and it doesn't give them sufficient cooling down time to read and think about it. Get a receipt to say that they've read it and they understand it. And yet you might have the written statement within the tenancy agreement and as a separate document, but at least you will be covering yourself, and this all comes down to communication with your tenant at the outset. So my experience tells me that, you know, how a tenancy is run prior to the tenancy actually starting, and how you how you manage that lead up to the tenancy starting pretty much gives you the good grounding for how a tenancy is going to go. So if you set out, you know, with strong communication, documenting things, making sure that the tenant understands what they're entering into, then generally and hopefully, appreciate relationships can break down, life changes occur, you will have that open and transparent relationship between the two of you.
But what about tenancies that are already in place? So we've already got a tenant. She's been there 3 months. They've been there 3 years. What do landlords have to do with that tenant?
So
your homework, get some paper out.
There's no need to give them a new tenancy agreement. I think I had a call yesterday just about, do we need to give the tenants a new tenancy agreement? No. This goes on to a periodic, and the gentleman over there just asked me about terms which are written in the existing tenancy agreement. So there will be words such as fixed term, there will be terms such as rent reviews, and just imagine that they're written in invisible ink because they've now been superseded by the new new
Even
law.
if the tenants signed it, that doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Do please ensure that you are using, reputable sources. Government have got their tenancy agreement. We've got it on EMPOA. Have you got your tenancy?
We've got the government one, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are plenty of resources, even in this room today, to be able to ensure that you've got the correct documents. Now, this document for existing tenancies is called the Government's Information Sheet for the tenants. You can give this now. You must ensure that you do it in the correct format, so don't send them a link. You must download the PDF document and ensure that you have proof of service to them. Now, if you really sort of wanted to get into it, you can check your tenancy agreement for the notice serving clause and see that you sort of can send it via email, via post. Keep with the same way of communication that you have done. If you haven't used an email address to communicate with your tenant in the 5 years they've been there, or you're not sure if that's the correct one for them, probably don't send it via email. Maybe use it if you are local to the properties as an opportunity to go round, see the tenants, have a look around the house, make sure they're clear on everything, make sure they understand what's coming, and ask them to sign a receipt. Again, this is about being open and transparent. New laws coming in. I want to make sure everything's, good for you. I'm here. Please make sure that you're reporting maintenance in writing to us. And, here's an emergency number if you need it, etc., etc. But the information sheet is just for existing tenancies. This is on the government website, it's on Dash's website, it's on EMPOA's website. And do get a receipt from the tenant if you can, to ensure that they've got it, and certainly you need to prove that you have served it. So whether it be a picture of you standing at the front door, pushing it through the door, giving it to the tenant, etc. That's for existing tenancies.
So you have 33 and a half days left to do that. And 2 of them are bank holidays. So you haven't got long. So it's really important that that's done on every tenancy. And if you've got joint tenants in a property and they're all listed on the tenancy agreement, so you've got Hannah Cleaver and Linda Cobb on your tenancy agreement, Hannah needs to have one, I need to have one.
Yes.
Okay, if Hannah lives in the property, but I'm on the tenancy agreement, it's okay just to do it to Linda Cobb. So you haven't got long. So that's your homework from today. Put some time, put a note in your diary to do it, and then give yourself another alert in a week's time to make sure that you've done it, because there is a fine involved if you haven't issued the government information sheet for tenants. Okay, some top tips then, Hannah. What they've got to do when they leave here.
Well, get educated and get support. I mean, you're all here. It's a great testament to you that you are here today. You've got some fantastic resources here in the fact that you've got the council, myself and Linda, and you can ask questions. If we don't know, we will find out. Or if somebody within the council, if somebody you need to talk to isn't here, you can get a contact detail. Join a landlords association, join Dash, join EMPOA. And make sure that you feel confident with it. The government guidance is long, but actually it's really quite easy to it's clear.
They've really changed their language for their landlord guidance documents, and I'm really impressed with it. So we're going to share with you a link in a moment. Don't be afraid. It's not like the old days where it was a bit, difficult to read. It's really accessible, so definitely have a look.
Do you have existing tenancies? Get to know your portfolio. If there's that one property you think, it's always been a bit tricky, reach out. See if you can go round. Go and sort of try and bridge that gap. Go and have a conversation with them. Explain where you're at. See if you can draw a line in the sand. Get on top of those maintenance issues. Be really comfortable with your portfolio, who are living in your properties, who you need to give the information sheet to. And I think we've said this before, haven't we? Set yourself a reminder every Friday between now and the 31st of May to say, have you served the information sheet, if that is the relevant document you need to serve. Speak with your agent. So if you do have an agent, I know that Joe here is an agent, but I don't know if anybody else is within the room. Just make sure that depending on what service you're having, everybody knows what job they're doing. So I think if you've got a let only, I don't know if the agent's serving it fully managed as the agent, make sure that you're both on the same sheet, which, of course, Generally, that will be happening. You understand the agent will have communicated what they're doing, but just make sure.
Just before we go on to the next thing, if you're employing an agent for a full service, they look after everything, how legal are your responsibilities? Do you have the exact same legal responsibilities because you're the property owner, or does their legal responsibilities fall to the agent?
It's difficult. Your terms of business between you and your agent are different to your statutory obligation as a landlord. Your obligation of the landlord is to provide a safe, decent accommodation in accordance with all of the legislation. So your job is to, you've got to manage that agreement with your letting agent. So often, if there's a problem at the property, say for example, I don't know, there's no smoke detection in the property, the tenant dies in a fire, then it's not going to be acceptable for you just to say, well, the tenant, the agent was involved in the whole property, you would be liable for that breach. If, in terms of the, if we scale it all the way back to just issuing the information sheet, yes, that could be your defence, but how have you managed that? So we're here today to say, you call the agent, have you issued the information sheet? That's how you manage your agreement with your agent. They could come after you, they could come after the agent, they could come after both of you. So you need to be protecting yourself, keep all of that documentation between you and your agent. It's not, moving forward, it's not going to be enough just to say, it's the agent was doing it. If you're profiting from it and you are getting the rent, then you are responsible, even if you have an agreement with an agent. And in terms of the Ombudsman, that kind of mirrors what I was saying in terms of the agent has their bit, but you will, even with a fully managed service, you will need to be part of the Ombudsman as well.
Keep good records. I mean, a trainer of ours says evidence, 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 because if you do have an investigation and you haven't got any evidence, that is all that they can draw upon.
Yes.
So as unnecessary as it may seem at this moment in time, it is very, very necessary to protect yourself, to protect your incoming tenants, and look after your business, and make sure, to be honest with you, you know, if we go back to the smoke alarm scenario, if let's say you're having a communication with the agent, you need to be seen that you are responding to that communication, responding to maintenance requests, responding within certain timescales, which is coming down the line in AWAB's law, and being a responsible landlord. And again, as we've put here, Linda, you know, if it does get too much, maybe employ the services of an agent. If you're at the time in your life and you're thinking, actually, this perhaps isn't where I want to be, you may find that you do, you know, have a conversation with an agent and see if that's a route for you.
Yeah, there's leasing as well. A lot of councils and charities are getting into leasing. So if you're thinking, OK, well, it's probably all a bit much for me, you can look at different options as well and say, no, I might lease my property. You know, there are lots of different avenues there that you can look at. OK, so what resources are out there? On the left is the implementation roadmap. So that's going to talk to you about what's happening on the 1st of May, what's coming. We're going to share all these with you, so don't worry. And then on
our website as well.
Yeah, on the website as well. Good. And then on the right is the MHCLG alert, so you'll get those through to your phone. So everything that we've talked to you about today, we've put into 2 training courses. You've got the EMPOA online training portal there on the left, and the Dash free training on renters' rights. So everything we've talked to you about today, we've put into some free learning for you. So you can go on, and at your leisure, it will go through slide by slide what we've been talking about, and we'll share all this with you. But they are really good resources for you to have, just to go and think, OK, well, I've heard what they've said, but I just need, you know, sit down in a dark room and go through it all in my head. OK, so if you're not already accredited, Dash Landlord accreditation is available for you. What I think is the biggest positive from accreditation is you get that free property inspection, a virtual inspection by a third party that will go into one of your properties. And as we come back to talk to you about that phase 3, the AWAB's law, the Decent Home Standard, which is more property fabric basis rather than tenancy management, which is a lot of what we've talked to you about today,
will be able to, that peace of mind of having that inspection by a third party just really helps landlords think, oh, no, I'm all right, yeah, that one is good. I know it's good, but I've had somebody say it's good. So there is the option there. And then in terms of EMPO, one of my favourite things about EMPO is the fact, and the NRLA, for anybody that is part of the NRLA, you've got this telephone helpline. I think that, for me, is going to be run off its feet, shall we say, in the next couple of weeks.
It is, yeah, certainly the phone lines were going yesterday, and actually, to be honest with you, it's a real saving, you know, really makes me as part of EMPO feel very confident that we are supporting our landlords. Yeah. Because I think often a problem shared to begin with, it can be quite a sort of lonely and daunting place, particularly at the moment. And a lot of feedback that we get is, you know, that landlords feel supported, and particularly a problem that maybe they've let go on for longer than they needed to because they didn't know where to turn to. They phone our legal helpline, and actually there is an option, there is a, you know, they can be helped. So we've got lots and lots of positives about joining us, and as Linda said, there's support there for you. You don't have to go it alone, you know, and EMPO is from £1.35 a week, which is sort of less than a cup of coffee these days. And you do get us, don't you? You know, which, you know, consistency, and it's good to be sort of part of a kind of community, isn't it? Because it does break down that sort of, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to turn to. Well, actually, I'll ring Hannah, I'll ring Linda, and hopefully we'll get the answers for you. So
there is that. There's our contact details there. Yeah. So we'll be sharing all these with you anyway. So that's me, and then there's your phone number as well, Hannah. So.
If you need any further advice, they've kind of directed you to where to get that from. The council obviously is available for that. But you've always just got to be very mindful that whilst we can provide advice, you also wear kind of we carry the stick as such as well. So we will often direct you to organisations like EMPO and Dash to get that advice, because it keeps us kind of out of that dual-hatted role. But I suppose lastly, just to say thanks very much to Linda and Hannah for coming today. That was really, really useful, and I hope everyone's had a good time.